All right, everybody, good morning. Hope you're doing well. And thanks for joining us this morning here to talk a little bit about our end of year assessments webinar. It's my pleasure to join you today. My name is Tyson Kane, and we at the Texas Education Agency are excited to be able to share with you an ever-growing list of tools that we are very appreciative that folks have been able to support across the state in creation of that we can help share with you all today. I want to first off start by saying thanks just to everybody across the state for what has been a Herculean effort to be able to educate kids during this time and all the many things that you're doing to be able to close out this school year and start thinking about the future, especially what to do this summer and how to think about the next school year. There has just been no shortage of really incredible things that we have seen across districts and schools in ways that go far above and beyond what is normally called for in teaching our kids. So thank you so much for everything that you've done. It is humbling to be able to be here, to be able to help support you all. And we are here to do that to the best of our ability. So with that, we are excited to go ahead and jump in and talk a little bit about this tool that we have for the optional end of year assessments. I want to begin with some introductions. We have some folks who are going to go ahead and navigate for us here. So if we could advance the slide up one to be able to move to the next one, that'd be great. So as I mentioned, I'm Tyson. I oversee assessment here as well. And I'm joined today by Julie and Michael. And so Julie and Michael, if you guys would like to go ahead and jump on and introduce yourselves, that'd be great.
Good morning. My name is Julie Cole. I'm the Director of Policy and Publications in the Student Assessment Division, and I will be talking through the general information about the end-of-year assessments.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Michael Mudding. I'm a product trainer with Pearson, and I'll be covering the Pearson side of things for the end-of-year assessments.
Great. Thanks, guys. Well, with that, let's go ahead and jump in. We are going to have the Q&A up for you to be able to answer questions throughout. We may not be able to get to everything at the moment, but we'll continue to monitor as we can. And then we will have a dedicated Q&A session at the end where we'll try to go ahead and address buckets of topics here. We're also going to have some contact info for you at the end. Should there be any additional follow-up questions, we'll be happy to address those in whatever way is best. I'll also note that for your colleagues that maybe are not able to attend, we'll of course post this webinar up for them as information. And we've got some more videos coming along with this one that will be related to this end of year assessment tool that will talk a little bit about what's coming. So we're work in progress right now. We've got a few things up and we're gonna have a few more things in the coming week. So we're excited to continue to add to this. So thank you for your grace as we're continue to build tools and things rapidly, real time, and we appreciate you extending that to us as we continue to improve what it is that we hope we can get out to you. All right. With that, let's start to cover a little bit of the purpose. So if we move forward, we've got first off a highlight on our resources. If you head to our COVID-19 support page, which many of you have done, and you know that the commissioner highlights in the superintendent calls that he's been having. We have cards up. One says student assessment. And if you head to that web page here and click on that student assessment card, it'll put you here. And if you scroll down just a little bit on this particular page, you'll see that we have a couple of resources up related to some of the STAR assessment and TELPAS and FitnessGram here. We're going to be adding to this, but particularly I want to call your attention to the tools, templates, and resources header there under STAR, where you have a optional end of year assessments FAQ. That's the one that has been published a little bit earlier last week, and so I do refer you to that if you want to look through and get a good overview of what the tool is going to be like in copy form. And then in addition here, we have one video up, which is actually a video from Pearson talking about how to do the student registration file submission. And you can expect that we'll have a couple more videos right here in this section that'll be added, and then we'll put the webinar up on this page too. All right, so we head back to our presentation. Covering today some of the topics Go ahead and advance this forward. There we go. The objectives here today, we're going to give you a little overview of what the optional end-of-year assessments are. We're going to chat a little bit about the registration process, and that'll get a little bit into the weeds, but we think is important for folks to be able to have the knowledge of so they can follow the steps that they need to be able to get the access. We'll talk about some of the reporting functionality that's going to be available and some of the scoring as well. We're adding to this, so there's going to be more to come on this, even that we're talking about today. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some different supports that are available as well. Just at a high level, before we jump into some of the overviews of the assessments themselves, I just want to say that a couple of points to note. One is that these are optional. There is no mandate, of course, to use any assessment tool here throughout the end of the school year, but we wanted to make sure that we could provide an opportunity for folks to be able to look at a way to see in light of this pandemic, where students are coming out academically. That can be a hard thing to do, and I think an especially important thing to do as we start to think about the effect and the impact that it's had on student learning. So these are TEKS-aligned resources that mirror a STAR test in terms of the blueprint, and they mirror the 2019-2020 school year blueprint in particular. So they're very relevant in the sense of making sure that we got the right coverage from a TEKS perspective to look at each individual subject and how our students might have performed. I also want to let you know that there's going to be another product that we're going to be coming up with for the beginning of the year that will be available for administration in the fall as well. It will be similar in form in the sense that the test forms themselves mirror the STAR length and design. And so similarly, the beginning of year will also kind of mirror that STAR length and design. Also optional. Again, everything here is optional. Use it if it's valuable to you. Feel free not to use it at all if you want to move on and use something else. The idea here is to make sure that people have a tool that they don't necessarily have to go off and spend the time to create themselves at the district level. If they wanted to put together a nice full view of all the TEKS and the coverage for the school year. So we went ahead and tried to do that as the support. So with that, happy to go ahead and jump into an overview of the EOY assessment, and we'll go ahead and turn it over to Julie for that.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this morning. As I said, I'm going to just do the high-level overview, and then Michael with Pearson will get into a little bit more detail on some of the technical aspects. So the end-of-year assessments, as previously announced, and most of the information is already up in the frequently asked questions document posted on our website that Tyson went over. So these are an optional tool that we're providing for districts, charter schools, and parents to measure student learning. We want to be able to support districts in analyzing the student progress and understanding of the statewide curriculum that's in place for the school year. But this is only one data point that districts can use to evaluate the progress their students have made this school year. It should not be the only data point, and it should not be used for any placement decisions. The end-of-year assessments will be available no later than May 11th. That's a little over a week and a half. We are actually working hard to try to get them out a little bit sooner, but definitely by May 11th. And the testing window will remain open until June 12th, just to make sure everybody has an opportunity to test that wants to test. So as I mentioned earlier, or as is mentioned in the frequently asked questions, the end-of-year assessments have been built using the released State of Texas Assessment of Academic Readiness, or STAR, test questions. These are the test questions that are actually up right now on the STAR released test question webpage, as well as the answers. So that's why we want to make sure that you're aware that the questions and the answers are out there. And so we don't want to use it for any placement, any accountability decisions. It's just one piece of data to evaluate where your students are right now. Again, each question has been selected to align with the curriculum in place for this school year. As you know, the Reading Language Arts curriculum has recently undergone some revisions, and so we will make sure we align to the assessed curriculum that's up on the STAR webpage right now. We will cover all the STAR subjects, 3 through 8 reading and math, 4 and 7 writing. But remember, the writing will not have a prompt. It will be multiple choice only. 5 and 8 science, 8 social studies, algebra 1, English 1, English 2, biology, US history, and the 3 through 5 reading and math, grade 4 writing in Spanish. That was 3 through 5 reading and math in Spanish, and grade 5 science in Spanish. And again, the English 1 and 2 will not have a writing prompt. For the accommodations and accessibility tools, there isn't any new decision making that needs to happen. The student should be able to use the accommodations and accessibility tools that they routinely and effectively use during classroom instruction, hopefully right now during at-home instruction and during classroom testing. So it's not necessary for districts to hold an ARD committee, an LPAC meeting, or any other decision-making meeting to determine appropriate accommodations for this end-of-year assessment. Just provide what they typically use. For the online test, the accommodations and accessibility tools will be available through the testing system, but they will be slightly different since we're using Pearson's TestNav system instead of ETS's SOTP. However, we will make a practice test available so that students can become familiar with the TestNav environment and how those online tools function. That should be available sometime next week. And there's also a help menu within each test. So if students aren't sure how to operate a specific tool, they can go to the help menu within the test. The types of tools online tools that will be available for these tests are listed right here on the left, including text-to-speech as an accommodation. These are the tools that will be available for all tests. Again, because of the short turnaround time, we're just turning them on for all tests, and students can choose to use them or not use them. For the content-specific tests, we also have online tools available, such as the calculators, the rulers, and the reference materials. But of course, those will only appear in the specific tests that typically would have those. Lynn, there you go, thank you. The test link. So again, as we've said a couple of different times, the test is similar. The end-of-year assessments are based on the STAR test. So they have the same number of test questions as the total blueprint and in each reporting category. The only exception to that would be the reading language arts assessments. Because of the new curriculum, there isn't as many released test questions as that align to the current curriculum as there are in other subject areas. So those might be slightly shorter. And again, they will not include a writing prompt for grade 4 or 7 and for English 1 and 2. So the end of year assessments should take about as long as a STAR test. However, you as a district can set your own timing policy, and students can pace themselves as necessary to complete the test. So, you could indicate that students only have 2 hours to test. You could give them a day window to test. You could give them a week window to test. And they could complete multiple tests in one day if that's what you want them to do. So that the timing aspect of it is completely a local decision and then a student decision. For the end of year assessments, we are providing them in an online format as well as a paper format. However, we definitely recommend the online format in this current environment. It is not an application that you have to download. It is a click through a web browser, so students can easily access it at home if they have a device and if they have internet. The online format has automated scoring, and so the results will pop up immediately, and as soon as the student hits submit button, and we'll show you that in just a few minutes. We will provide user IDs, passwords, and test codes that will be linked to the student's ID number. so that they can log into the SchoolNet system, which is where the tests are being hosted, and access each test. And then for online testers, the reporting data will be aggregated and provided to districts so that they can put them into their own system or use them as they wish. Now, we also, of course, will offer a paper format. We know that there are some students across the state of Texas that don't have the right devices, don't have access to the internet. And so if you wanted to provide those students with a paper form, we have that available. The thing with the paper form is that we will need you will need to consider the printing and possibly shipping of the test booklets and answer documents to your students. And then if you want the results from those students, you will need to get the answer documents back from them. And so whether they're mailing them or taking a picture, screenshot, whichever, you'll need to figure out how to get those paper test results back. If you want the data. And then of course, if you want that data, not only do you have to get them back to you, you also have to enter them into the SchoolNet system if you want them aggregated with all of your other students who are testing online. But we have provided some paper options for you. You can print the test directly from Pearson Access Next. You can have the paper test printed and shipped from Pearson, or you can also contact your regional education service center. Some of those are offering printing and shipping of these tests like they are for lots of other materials that are currently out there. So when we talk about registration, I am going to turn this over to Michael from Pearson to help walk you through what the registration looks like.
Okay, thank you, Julie, and good morning again, everyone. So starting with student registration, let's talk about here the optional assessments here as far as districts who are not going to participate in the optional end-of-year assessments. So if you are a district and you choose not to participate, we will still have the availability for parents to choose to test their students. So we will have some information forthcoming that will explain how parents will be able to register their students to test if you're a district that chooses not to participate. And we will have the registration window for districts and parents available, and that will close on May 29th. And the testing window will close on Friday, June 12th, 2020. As far as districts that choose to provide the optional end-of-year assessments in any available grade and subject or course, you have to register. And we're going to talk more about that here. So registration, will also include submitting a data file for online and paper testing. So regardless if you're choosing to test online or paper, you will still have to submit registration information, including that data file. And like Tyson mentioned earlier, we do have the video posted on TEA's COVID-19 support student assessment webpage that'll walk you through the steps on how to submit that registration file. And we'll actually walk through some key points on that task here in a bit. So here is the registration process overall, the different steps here, starting with the first step. If you're going to participate, you need to notify Pearson that you're going to participate, and you'll do that by submitting, there is a web form called the Spring 2020 Optional End of Year Assessment Registration Web Form. You want to make sure to access that, and you're going to indicate in that web form that you will choose to participate. You're entering the grade levels of the students who will participate and the number of students who will participate. So that is your first step, again, indicating to Pearson that you will be opting in for this assessment by submitting that web form. Now, when you submit that web form, you want to make sure to do the next step, step 2, which is to provide that student registration file. Now, when you submit that web form, you're not going to receive any notification that tells you, okay, now go and submit the registration file. After you submitted that web form, when you're ready, and you have that registration file ready to submit, what you'll do is provide that as an attachment in a support request in the Pearson Access Next training site. I'm going to show you that. So the thing you want to remember here is you're doing this in the Brown training site of Pearson Access Next.
And just, we're getting, we'll answer a lot of questions at the end here, but just to jump in real quick, Michael, we're getting a bunch of questions on where's the web form located. So on that website location for the FAQ,
Yes.
on the FAQ that we showed initially on the assessment website for COVID, if you click into the FAQ, there's actually a link for the web form located in that FAQ. And it may be posted somewhere else too, but I know for sure there.
Yes, thanks for pointing that out, Tyson. It is actually posted also in Pearson Access Next, in the Pearson Access Next training site. And I'll actually show you how you can locate that here in a bit. But if you navigate to the Pearson Access Next training site and select the end of year assessment, you'll actually see the instructions, and it will also include a link to that web form.
And the link is in question number 12 of the FAQ specifically. So if you're scanning through them, it's question 12.
Okay. All right. So that is, again, your second step is to submit that registration file as an attachment through a support request in the Pearson Access Next Brown training site. Okay. So the next step here, step 3, is that student data is going to be uploaded into the SchoolNet platform. Okay, it's going to be into the SchoolNet platform, and that will be uploaded within 72 hours after you submit your registration file through that Pearson Access Next training site. Okay, so that's step 3. Step 4 is the Excel extract. There's going to be an Excel extract of the student testing credentials, and those will be provided to the districts, and the districts will then distribute those to the students. So this is, again, the process here of how the registration will work for the end of year assessment. Okay, and again, as a reminder, can't stress this enough, you're going to access the Brown Pearson Access Next training site, and we have the web address listed on the screen here, and you'll use your regular Pearson Access Next credentials. If you have trouble logging in, you can definitely call the customer support, and we will help you get logged in. Remember, you want to make sure that you are the district testing coordinator of record. Okay, and when you submit your support request, so these are just a couple of things I want to point out. Again, we do have a video that will walk you through the steps, but here is important for you to know that in the Brown Pearson Access Next training site, on the top right corner, you want to make sure to select the end of year assessment under 2019-2020. When you select that end of year assessment, that's when you'll be able to see the instructions for submitting the support request with that registration file. And also you'll find that web form link available on that page as well. Okay, so after you've made your selection there for the end of year assessment, you're going to navigate to support requests, and you're going to attach the file to the support request and submit it. So it's not going to work like it is with other Pearson Access Next files that you submit. This is actually going to be an attachment to a support request, and we will then upload it into the SchoolNet platform. Okay. However, you will use the same registration file format that you've used all year for STAR and the other assessments. That includes the data file format for student registration, and you can also reference the 2019-2020 student registration header template. And you can find both of these on the Pearson Access Next training site under support and navigate to documentation. You'll be able to find those. Okay. So like we mentioned, within 72 hours after you submit that registration file, student access will be available in the SchoolNet platform. Also, SchoolNet is the platform that is actually going to get the student to TestNav. And this is also important. Students are going to use the browser-based version of TestNav to complete their test. They are not going to use the app. If they have the app downloaded on their device, they're not going to use that. They're actually going to go to the SchoolNet site, log in, and they'll be able to enter a test code, a passcode that will then launch the test in a web browser. So again, very important for you to know that students will not be using the TestNav app for these end-of-year assessments. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the online platform here. For you as a district, you will not be required to access SchoolNet for setting up these end-of-year assessments. Again, after you've completed your registration, we will provide you 2 files. One file is going to contain the student login credentials for the SchoolNet site, and you're also going to receive another file that's going to have the testing passcodes for the student to open the test. Okay, so again, you will distribute those login credentials and the testing passcodes to your students based on your district policy. So this is what it's going to look like for the access for students to SchoolNet. So the username is going to be the first initial and the last name, and it may include numbers if you have students who were John Smiths or Juan Garcias. So here, that is what the username will be. Then you'll have passwords. Those passwords will be a randomly generated string. And students are going to use those same login credentials to log into SchoolNet for all of their tests. So they get their credentials here to SchoolNet, they sign in. Then this is what they will do after they sign in into SchoolNet. They'll follow these steps here. The first step will be, and this is for them to start the test, the first thing will be for them to do is to enter that test passcode. Again, you'll provide that passcode to them. They'll select Go. Then they'll be taken to this next screen here where they will verify that information that they're taking the correct test here, and they will click on Start Your Test. After they select Start Your Test, TestNav is going to launch. And remember, it's going to launch in a web browser. They do not need to download the TestNav. TestNav app is not used for this. Again, just like you saw here on the screen, the TestNav will launch in the web browser. Okay, and when a student completes the test, they will be able to submit the test. After they submitted their test, they will immediately be able to see their test results. And here's a sample of what that will look like. Okay, so let's talk about here the reporting aspect of the end-of-year assessment. So as you see, after a student closes the test, they'll be able to immediately see their results. So, I'm sorry, after they've submitted their test, and then when they close the test, the system will take them back to their home page, and they will also be able to view their detailed test results from the student's home page. So we're going to have additional information that will explain those features and the interface, and we'll have a video posted soon on how to access and interpret those test results. And this is what will be included in those test results. They will show how a student performed overall on the test. It will also show how they did on each test question along with the correct answer. It will also show the images of each test question and the recommended next steps. And for the overall test performance, that will be reported by raw score, scale score, and performance level. So if you are a district and your students are taking the EOY assessment online, you will have access to reporting data files similar to the ones that you are used for STAR. So we at Pearson will provide an export of those results to districts, and that export will include the information listed on the screen here: the student name, the PEIMS ID, test name, subject, grade level, percentage correct, the raw score, and the performance level. And again, we'll also have another video that will explain the reporting data files, and that will be coming soon as well. For paper testing, like Julie mentioned earlier, you want to make sure to know that only tests that are submitted through the SchoolNet system will be included in the district results extract. So for students who are taking the end-of-year assessment on paper, you want to make sure to provide that local guidance to parents on returning those answer documents back to you. And again, if you want results, those reports there, you want to make sure to understand that you will have to submit that test through the SchoolNet system in order to receive those results. Okay, and we mentioned resources and support information where things are posted. We do have 2 toolkits that will be available. The first is the district toolkit, and that is going to contain information for districts that will include registering to test, user distribution and test codes, accessing reports, and paper testing. And you'll see here that this will be available in Avocet. So understand this is going to be a different version of Avocet than the one that you're used to using if you've used Avocet in the past before. We'll refer to this as Avocet 2. This is again going to contain end of year information for district and parents. So again, this is the district toolkit. You'll be able to find that in the Avocet web address URL listed on the screen here. And the other resource we have is the parent toolkit. That's also located on Avocet, and we'll take a look at that here in a bit. And this will contain the end of year assessment overview, registering to test, practice test, and accessing results. And any other resources that we have for either the parent or toolkit, we will post in Avocet. So we'll see the next screen here. And again, if you notice the URL, it's different than the one that you're normally used to. This has a -02 in that URL, avocet.pearson.com/tx-02/home. And you'll see it looks different because it's not going to have much information as far as what you're used to seeing in the regular Avocet. This is just going to contain end of year assessment resources, and you'll see on the left hand side there will be information for the districts under the district toolkit, and for parents under the parent toolkit. So currently right now we just have the video posted, but once things get completed they will be posted on the Avocet site. All right, and that brings us to the end of the Pearson portion of the presentation.
Great. Thanks, Michael, so much for walking through that with us. We're going to go through some of the questions here that we've got more thematically, and then we can answer a few live, and then we're happy to also take back some of the ones that we may not be able to answer yet today and just get you answers on those as quick as we possibly can, so appreciate it. As I flip it through here, a decent amount on the beginning of year assessments that we had mentioned at the beginning. So just as a reminder, we have beginning of year assessments that we'll make available in the fall as well. Those assessments in the fall will be similar to these end of year assessments, but they are in fact different forms, so they are not the same. And they, let's see, let me take a read of a few questions here. Grade subject. So it's generally going to be expected, we'll cover more detail on the beginning of your assessments, but it would be expected that students who are taking the test at the beginning of the year will most likely take that test for the prior grade. So that is to say, if I'm a fourth grader, then I'd be taking a third grade end of year test for my beginning of year test in fourth grade to see where I'm starting the year. That would really be the recommended use. Though of course districts may use it for any intent that they prefer, and you don't have to test kids off grade level. Will the beginning of year be using release star questions? Yes, so built on the same set of release questions. We again are going to have different forms for those, so they are not the same as the end of year, but we're going back to all the STAR questions for the entirety of the program. So these are hundreds of questions across many different subject areas. We believe that there's still usefulness given the diversity there. Results will be reported directly to the district through those, as mentioned by Michael, that are taken in the online platform. And then those results can be disaggregated or oriented in any way that the district sees fit. Let's see here.
So Tyson, I'm going to jump in with a few as well. So one of the questions that came in was about the TSDS number. That's an optional field in the data file. Really, we want you to be using the student ID that we typically use for testing. And that is will be linked to the username and the password. So I know that some of you were wondering about if you have two John Smiths, it will be, the password will be linked to John Smith's student ID, and that's how you'll be able to differentiate them. You are able to pause, and students are able to pause and resume the test. So if they need to take a restroom break or go grab a snack, they can certainly do that. We'll put information in there about how long that pause will last. And again, the tests are only multiple choice, no writing prompts, no constructed response. Another question about the registration data file is you do not need to put in specific P&P information into that data file. The tools that were listed on that page, including the accommodation of text-to-speech, will be available to all students. Likely the students that don't need it won't use it, and even if they do, it should not affect their test results. We have done studies on that.
Got one on the application of the test. So if we were looking to measure whether students are meeting their growths, we recommend end of year, beginning of year, or previously STAR assessments. So that is up to you as the district as far as what you would like to use. And I think it has a lot to do with the timing of when the test is given. So remember that these are, not tests that should be used for accountability purposes, or, clearly there's not a high security here, given that the answers are being provided as well and are somewhat freely available. So this is really for use as a diagnostic tool. And I think always best to message that as such and say, look, just want to kind of, just like going to the doctor, we want to check out, how things are going, and just get a fair view so that we can be smart about next steps that we're taking as teachers and adults for you as a student to be able to give you what you need. And so that's really the idea here. And so we want to provide multiple tools for that in the form of this end of year, beginning of year, or other tools that you may use. So whichever combination that you think best and appropriate, I think that's fine to do. The timing matters, because the end of year, I think there's one benefit to kind of seeing how kids played out this year, especially with not having the same kind of instruction for the last few months of the year. And then the beginning of the year, to me, has a separate purpose, which when you come in, you say, gosh, I wonder what the effect of having that summer time out with additional couple months at the end of last school year time out, what that's going to turn into for where we think our kids are beginning the school year after last year's material. So that's what I would be interested to know, and I think would be a good use for that. Keep in mind, we will have the interim assessments as well. And those interim assessments are on top of, those of you who are familiar with them, those are available on top of these products. So these are not going to be replacing those. So a lot of different optional tools that you can use to be able to take advantage of that.
So a couple of questions about parent participation. And so if again, if a district is choosing not to use these, then the parent can choose to test their own student. And they will have a separate registration process. We're working on that form right now, and it will be posted as soon as it's available. If the parent registers, the parent will be sent login information for that student, or if they wanted the paper information, they would be sent the paper information. But that information goes back to the parent, not necessarily to the district, the home district, unless the parent chooses to send it to the home district. They are the same tests, though. There's only one form of each test, whether you're a parent giving it to your student or a district giving it to your student. And so if a parent chooses to opt in, but the district has already opted in, we will let the parent know that they'll be testing under the district. And so basically the district will trump the parent registration. Yep. Another question just in general is about access to SchoolNet. If you don't have access, if you're not currently using SchoolNet, that's okay. Districts don't really have much to do in SchoolNet, if anything at all, because all of the registration process uploading files and downloading files will be through Pearson's system as opposed to through SchoolNet. The only access to SchoolNet really will be the student as he clicks on that web browser link to get to the test. And again, these are completely optional. If you are thinking that you want to register or want to participate and then things happen and you don't actually end up giving the test, that's okay. It's optional. It's just a tool we're making available for you to use if you have that opportunity and want that opportunity. We will make additional information available about the paper testing. But if you are already knowing that you're going to do the paper version, feel free to contact Pearson if you're thinking that you're going to have Pearson produce paper copies and ship them to you. But again, we'll make additional information available about that.
So no free response on the test.
Yeah.
Multiple choice only. Can you talk a little bit more, Julie, about some of the online accommodations and which students those are available for?
Right. So the list of online tools, which includes the accommodation of text-to-speech, will be available for all students. So most of the ones on the top are accessibility tools that are available for all students regardless. The only accommodation in this list is the text-to-speech, which again will be available for all students. You don't have to select that in the P&P. The test that we are producing will automatically include that. However, the reading passages will not be read, as well as the editing passages, test questions, and answer choices, just like our normal test. So there's no need to meet to discuss accommodations, and there's no need to load any accommodations or personal needs and preferences into the data file. They will already be part of the online test, those that are available.
And just for clarity, there are not going to be any content and language supports available on this.
There will not be any pop-ups and rollovers that are the typical content and language supports for the end of year test because of the quick turnaround time that we're producing them on. That is correct.
All right. Just give it a second to read through a few others here.
Yep. There's no pre-reads as well on those accommodations. Another one of the content and language supports won't be available.
Yeah. Okay, so we covered a lot of the parent items. So again, districts can register their register students and should, parents can also register directly. We're going to use a staggered kind of registration time for those, which more detail will be coming on that, but that would allow the parent to register independently if for whatever reason the district is not. We've got a couple questions about what if we register, do we still have to go through? No, you can change your mind at any time, certainly up to you on both the use case and at what time that you want to put in the registration there.
And you can also choose what grades, what subjects, what specific tests that you want to use. Maybe you don't want to use all of them. Maybe you only want to use, reading and math. That's fine. Completely optional at your discretion.
Yeah, and there also can be just subsets of kids. We got a few questions here. Do we have to register the whole district? No, you can do it by certain campuses if you like, or whatever unit makes sense for you. Does the test save the student responses as you go? So this is a question
Absolutely.
for you, Michael. Yeah, but my understanding is yes, and then you can kind of come back should you need to do that.
Michael, did you want to clarify that?
Oh, yes, that's
Thank
correct.
you.
Yes, sorry about that.
I believe it saves it, every 100 seconds or something, I read. So yes, if there's an outage or something, it will definitely save students' answers that they have chosen so far. And then you can, when technology is back on, the student can resume testing.
Yeah. Question about registration files, so very similar to the format that you are already familiar with for uploading. So we expect that to be nearly identical, because we want there to be a very light lift on the registration.
Right, and you should just use your 2020 registration file from STAR. That's the easiest thing to do.
Yep.
And just upload it into the Pearson system. Or send, yeah,
Yep.
following those upload instructions.
The question on the browser, so it is not secure. The app will open in the browser, as we talked about before, but that's not a secure browser that kind of locks down the computer.
So talking about the logins, again, the login information will be based on the student ID that is in the registration data file. The login will be a username, which is first name, last name. Yeah, thank you for flipping back, because I think it's first initial and last name. Thank you. And then a randomly generated string of characters that the student will put into the password. These two pieces of information are what students need to log into the SchoolNet system. And they need those pieces of information for every single test that you're going to assign to them. So if you're assigning all grade 8 tests, then they're going to use those same credentials for all 4 grade 8 tests. Glenn, can you flip to the next slide? What will be different is the test passcode. So again, if I'm a grade 8 student, I'm gonna log into to SchoolNet using my user ID and password, and then I'm gonna, in this take a test box, I'm gonna enter 8 math, and then I'll take the 8 math test. And then when I'm ready to take 8 science, I'll log back in using the same credentials, but in the take a test, I'll do 8 science, and so on. So the only thing that will be different is the test that they select once they're on this home page. And this home page is also where they're going to see the their test results from each test they took. So username and password take them to the SchoolNet homepage. And then from the SchoolNet homepage, they enter test passcodes into that take a test that will also be provided as they take the different tests that you have assigned them.
Yep. We'll keep going through some themes as we have here. We're also going to go ahead and collect a lot of the questions. We'll bucket them into themes and put out kind of another FAQ answer.
Right. We hope to get an updated FAQ out in the next, hopefully maybe later this week or early next week.
Yeah. So thanks for your questions. Certainly keep submitting them. And just because we don't get to all of them, it doesn't mean that we won't still be able to answer them for you. So thanks.
So they can't really retake a test. It's a kind of a one and done snapshot to see where they are. And I know I had a specific question about the screen that showed partially correct. That's SchoolNet's system. That won't be on there for these tests because we don't have any multiple choice items that are partials. They either get credit or they don't. The student, as part of how you assign students tests, not only do you need to give them their username and password, you need to give them the test code that you want them to take. So again, if it's a grade 8 student and you want them to only take the reading and math test, then you're going to send them the test code for reading and math and not for science and social studies. The student can't select what test they take. They have to be provided the test code and then enter it in there. So data on individual questions will be included in the reporting file. Just strolling through a couple of them. I don't know that we have a locked in time of when that data file will be available, but we are working on figuring that out, and we'll get that information out to you as soon as possible.
Yep. So other questions on the beginning of year assessment. So we'll be able to cover more of that at another time. Questions about windows and kind of other details. So just want to mentioned, you don't have to participate in one to be able to participate in the other, though, so you can do them all independently. Each one is optional and not tied to each other. In the reporting, we will have the results with each item, and each item will be tied to an SE. So you'll be able to see kind of by item related to SE information. As far as the capabilities of that reporting, we have more information coming for you on that with another video. Can you upload results into your local SIS? Yes, for sure. The reporting file, as mentioned here, will be very similar to STAR, as is the registration format. Timing on the data. So the window here closes on June 12th. Michael, do you know when the first available data timing would be for the actual data files for reporting?
For reporting, I don't know.
Okay, we'll get back on that
Yeah.
one. If you use a paper assessment, do you have to report the results to Pearson? No. No one is required to do any reporting of results as a district, for anything you do with regard to the paper side. Just realize that the paper piece is going to have to be locally scored, whereas the online piece is automatically scored. So that's the big benefit there.
And not only does it, I mean, you can locally score it yourself for that benefit, or you can enter it into the SchoolNet system as if you were the student sitting and taking the test, so that students' information can be disaggregated with all the other students who tested online.
So you do need to register, regardless of paper or online format, from a registration standpoint.
And Pearson will cross-reference parent registrations against district registrations. And again, the district registration will trump the parent registration. So the student won't take the test twice. They will take it under the district's, they will take it under the district and not under the parent if they both register.
Great.
We'll look at, there's been a couple of questions about this PowerPoint being uploaded, as well as the recording. We'll look at posting that PowerPoint as well. And both of these will be on the COVID assessment webpage. Again, and we will make parent registration information about, in general, we'll make parent information about the end of year assessments available on our website, as well as probably sending out to a couple of different resources. You're welcome to make parents available of this option. And we'll provide a separate parent registration form so that parents know how to register, as well as lots of other tools that were in the toolkit listed, so that parents can do this on their own if they want. And then, of course, if they have questions, they can contact Student Assessment or they can contact Pearson. If the parent is doing their own, we don't expect them to contact the district.
We got a number of questions related still to the kind of the accommodations and whether or not there is the flexibility to be able to turn those on or off for various students. We're going to take that one back and we'll go and we'll see if we can't provide an update there as we look into some other information. So thanks for those thoughts and feedback. We'll see what we're able to do in the time period here. Still wanting to make the administration as simple as possible. Versions, nope, single version of each form. They're not scrambled. Forms are not scrambled each time. So do realize that it's the same form that's used for grade level and subject.
But I'm wondering what the purpose of that question was. It is not like the 2019 release test, or it's not the 2017 release test. It has questions from across the release test from 2013 through 2019. So as Tyson said, if you do the math, that's hundreds of items per test that could be selected for this one testing opportunity. So it's not like the students are going to be able to remember all of the items that you might have provided to them over the last years, because you probably provided them release tests that align to their grade level across the years. So it's not a test that a test form that they have likely seen in total. They may have seen the items specifically, but it's doubtful that they're going to remember all of those items from all the tests across all the years. But remember, it is items that are test questions that are released on our webpage, as well as the answer choices or answer keys. So that's why we don't advise using it for any accountability purposes, any placement decisions as to whether they should be in an AP class or not, because technically a student could go and look up every question and every answer if they wanted to, if they were really ingenious about that. But then that wouldn't give you any viable information. So we do think this is a tool to use to evaluate where your students are right now. It is not something that they have seen in this particular version. But again, it is optional as to whether or not you want to use it or not. And again, there will be a different test for the fall than from the spring. We will build separate, different tests in the fall than the spring end of year assessments.
Yeah. A question about how this is different than the interim assessments. So just to be clear on that, the length of this end of year test is similar to a full STAR length, whereas the interim assessments, for those of you who are familiar, those are going to be very similar to what you've seen in the past, and that those are shorter tests that are designed to also mimic the STAR blueprint, but those are multi-stage, meaning that there's kind of an initial stage and then there's a subsequent stage that a student moves on to based on the results of the initial stage. The interims are also not available on paper, and so those are just an online test. But the interim assessments are also available across grade levels and subjects in a similar way. Just note that they are shorter tests. They are different questions than the questions that's on the end of year test, and the interims are not available on paper. So they are useful tools for monitoring during the course of the school year. But we wanted to provide some additional assessments, knowing that those were getting wide use. Roughly half the districts in the state are using the interim assessment. So wanted to make sure that we had additional assessments out there that could at least provide some value that weren't using those same questions.
All right, and we are about out of time. As Tyson said, we will be looking through all of your questions that you submitted, so thank you so much for submitting the questions. And we will update the frequently asked questions document to reflect answers to the majority of these questions that we have answers to. Of course, we'll also provide additional information on the end of year assessments additional information on the beginning of year assessments at some point in the future. Tyson, do you want to close us out?
I do. So I just want to say thanks so much again to everybody for participating today. This webinar will be posted on the TEA COVID-19 assessment site. We'll try and get that up ASAP for you so that you have a copy of this information. And then similarly, we'll add to that with some additional videos and the FAQs there. My thank you for your tireless work, and we'll try and provide clarifications as we can. But just appreciate everybody closing out the year this year, and all the things that are going on across the state are truly amazing. So as a father here in Texas, and as somebody who cares an awful lot about how our districts are doing, you guys make it really inspiring to be here right now. So thank you so much for attending today. Hope you have a great rest of the week and much more information to come. Thanks for participating, y'all.
Thank you. Have a good day. Stay safe.